It has been sitting there for 3 days, $38.40 in your AdSense account, which is connected to your YouTube channel, which you have been building for 10 months, which started with a phone on a stack of books and a ring light that was too far away, and the specific terrifying act of clicking a button that said create channel. 38.40 is not a lot of money. You know this. You are a functional adult with a day job and a rent payment and a bank account that has seen significantly larger numbers move through it in both directions. And $38.40 does not change your life in any material way. But 38.40 is not what it appears to be. 38.40 is 10 months of Saturday filming sessions. It is 41 edited videos. It is the week you almost quit and did not. It is 1,247 subscribers who chose to be part of something you built from nothing. It is your dad watching on your mom's iPad after dinner without ever announcing he was watching. $38.40 is the first time the world has paid you for something you made. Not a salary, not a wage, not money exchanged for hours of your time doing something someone else needed done. Money paid to you because people chose to watch something that came from inside you, from your ideas, your voice, your perspective, your specific way of seeing the world and putting it into sentences. You have been looking at that number for 3 days because you wanted to be ready when you clicked the button. You wanted to have earned the moment before you took it. Today, you are ready. You text Dan at 9 a.m. The text says, "Today is the day. I'm transferring the payment." Dan responds in 40 seconds. The response is, "Do not touch that button without me." You respond, "It's a bank transfer." Dan, "It's not a ceremony." Dan responds, "Everything is a ceremony if you decide it is. I am coming over at noon. Do not click anything until I get there. Also, what is the amount?" You respond, $38.40. There is a pause of 11 seconds. Then Dan responds, $38.40 is the most important amount of money in the history of currency. I will bring lunch. Do not eat before I arrive. It is 9 a.m. I was not planning to eat lunch at 9 a.m. Dan responds, "Good. Preserve the hunger." We are celebrating properly. This is Dan. This has always been Dan. The person who understands instinctively that some moments need a witness and a sandwich, and he is prepared to provide both. You put the phone down. You open your laptop. You open the AdSense dashboard. You look at the $38.40. You close the laptop. You are going to wait for Dan. Not because you need permission, because Dan has been there for 41 videos and one 1 a.m. phone call and a dinner that was his treat, and the moment deserves the person who has been in it from the beginning. Some things are better shared. This is one of them. Before Dan arrives, you go into the office for your morning shift. You work until noon. It is a half day. You arranged this a week ago specifically for today. And the morning passes with the specific patience of someone who is waiting for noon the way other people wait for a flight. Ravi sits at the desk next to yours. Ravi has known about the YouTube channel since you started it. You told him on a Tuesday 10 months ago, and he said, "How do people make money on YouTube exactly?" And you explained it. And he said, "So you need 1,000 subscribers first." And you said, "Yes." And he said, "That seems like a lot." And you said, "It is." And he said, "Well, good luck," and went back to his spreadsheet. Ravi is not unkind. Ravi is practical. Ravi sees the world in terms of inputs and outputs and risk and reward, and a YouTube channel with 0 subscribers generating 0 income in exchange for significant time investment did not compute favorably in Ravi's framework. You do not blame Ravi for this. Ravi was being honest. The world needs Ravis. At 10:30 a.m., Ravi looks up from his spreadsheet and says, "You seem different today." You say, "I'm getting my first YouTube payment today." Ravi blinks. Then he says, "You're monetized?" You say, "For about 6 weeks now. The first payment threshold is $100, but AdSense pays out monthly once you cross it. I crossed it last month." Ravi says, "How much?" You say, $38.40. Ravi is quiet for a moment. He is doing the calculation. You can see it happening, the inputs and outputs running in real time behind his eyes. Then he says, "So in 10 months you built a channel, got monetized, and earned $38.40. You say, "Correct." Ravi says, "And you're happy about that?" You say, "I am extremely happy about that." Ravi looks at you for a long moment. Then he says, "How many subscribers do you have now?" You say, 1,247. V says, and how much could you make at, say, 10,000 subscribers? You say somewhere between $300 and $800 a month, depending on the niche and the audience. Ravi is quiet again, the calculation running again. Then he says, send me the link to your channel. You look at him. In 10 months, Ravi has never asked for the link. You say, yeah, sure. You send him the link. He opens it immediately, right there at his desk, and he watches the first 30 seconds of your most recent video with the focused expression of a person updating a prior belief. Then he says, your lighting is really good. You say, thank you. It took a while to figure out. Ravi nods slowly. Then he goes back to his spreadsheet. But before he does, he says, and this is the most Ravi thing he has ever said, the most perfectly Ravi expression of a worldview shifting one careful degree. The inputs are starting to make more sense now. You take that as the compliment it is. Dan arrives at 12:07 p.m. carrying a bag from the Thai place 2 blocks away that contains significantly more food than 2 people need for lunch. This is normal. Dan operates on the principle that the right amount of food for a celebration is always more than you think, and he has never once been wrong about this in a way that mattered. He puts the food on the table. He sits down. He looks at the laptop. He says, show me. You turn the laptop toward him. The AdSense dashboard. The balance, $38.40. The transfer button. Dan looks at it for a long moment. Then he says, 10 months ago you texted me that you were about to click create channel and you wanted someone to witness it. Do you remember that? You say, I remember. Dan says, and I told you I wanted to hear the click even though you can't hear a mouse click over a phone call. You say, you said you believed in the power of intention. Dan says, I still believe in the power of intention. And right now, my intention is that you click that transfer button and we watch $38.40 move from YouTube to your bank account. And then we eat this food and we talk about what comes next. You look at the screen, the transfer button, the $38.40 that is 10 months and 41 videos and one 1 a.m. phone call, and a dad watching on an iPad without announcing it. And Ravi's inputs finally making sense. You say, okay. Dan says, say it out loud first. What is this money? You think about it. Then you say, this is the first money I have ever made from something I built, not from time I sold or hours I worked for someone else, from something I made that people chose to watch. That is what this is. Dan says, correct. Now click the button. You click the button. Transfer initiated. 38.40s will appear in your bank account within 1 to 3 business days. Dan starts clapping, not sarcastically, genuinely, fully clapping for a bank transfer, because Dan has always understood that the size of a moment is not determined by the size of the number. The size of a moment is determined by what it took to get there. You look at the confirmation screen. You feel something you were not entirely expecting to feel. Not just happy, legitimate. You feel legitimate. Like the thing you have been building in bedrooms and on weekends and on Saturday mornings when other things were easier. Like that thing has been officially recognized by the world as something real. Dan opens the Thai food. He hands you the container with the thing you always order because Dan knows what you always order because Dan is that kind of friend. You eat lunch. The best lunch you have ever eaten from the Thai place 2 blocks away. Not because the food has changed, because you have. You call your mom at 1:30 p.m. She answers on the first ring. She always answers on the first ring. This has not changed and will not change, and you have come to understand it as one of the fixed points of your life, the things that are always true regardless of what else is happening around them. She says, I was thinking about you today. How are you? You say, I transferred my first YouTube payment this morning. A pause. Then how much? You say, $38.40. She is quiet for a moment. You can hear the kitchen, the specific afternoon sounds of your parents' house that you have known your whole life. Then she says, do you remember when you were 7 years old and you drew a picture and I put it on the refrigerator? You say, what? She says, you drew a picture of a house with a tree. It was not a particularly good drawing. The tree was much larger than the house, which I understand is a perspective issue. But I put it on the refrigerator because you made it. And I wanted everyone who came into the kitchen to know that you made it. You say, Mom? She says, the YouTube channel is the refrigerator. You made something. and you put it where people could see it. And now the people who saw it paid you for it. That is the whole story. And it does not matter that it is $38.40, and it would not matter if it was 38 cents. You made something and someone paid you for it. That is everything. You are quiet. Dan has appeared in the kitchen doorway, dish towel in hand, and he is watching your face, and he knows, because Dan always knows, that something is happening, and he stays very still so as not to interrupt it. You say, "Is Dad there?" Your mom says, "He's in the garden." "Do you want me to call him?" You say, "Tell him the first payment came in." She calls to him, not on the phone, through the house, the specific projection of a voice that has filled a home for decades. You hear the back door. Then your dad's voice, closer. "How much?" Your mom relays $38.40. Your dad's voice from somewhere just off the phone. "Good. Tell them to keep going." You say, "I heard him." Your mom says warmly, the way she says things that are both true and complete, he knows. Dan sits back down after the call. He says, "She made you cry." You say, "The refrigerator speech made me cry." There is a difference. Dan says, "Noted. The refrigerator speech was very good. I might use it." You say, "Please don't use my mom's speech on other people." Dan says, "Okay, but it was objectively great. How does she do that?" You say, 29 years of practice." Dan nods. Then he says, "Okay, you've had the moment. You've clicked the button. You've called your parents. Now tell me what comes next, because you did not build this for $38.40, and we both know it." You open the notebook, the one that started with a list of video ideas on a page 18 months ago that you have been filling ever since, with ideas and formats and things you want to try and things you tried that did not work, and notes from the videos that performed better than expected, and notes from the ones that performed worse. You say, "The channel needs a consistent format now, not just individual videos, a brand, something people recognize before they even see the title." Dan says, "Like what you have been building for 10 months. You say, "More intentionally, more structured. I want to hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I want the monthly payment to be over $200. I want to post twice a week instead of once." Dan says, "That is a lot more work." You say, "I know." Dan says, "You're going to do it anyway." You say, "Obviously." Dan says, "I will watch every video. I will leave a comment on every video. Some of the comments will be great, and some of them will say things like, 'This one goes crazy,' on videos that do not go crazy. And you will have to accept that as part of the deal." You say, "I accepted that in week 1. Dan says, "Good. Then we have a plan. Also, I am taking the leftover pad thai." You say, "I was going to eat that for dinner." Dan says the $38.40 creator can afford new pad thai. This is your first taste of the freedom that comes with creative income. Use it wisely. He takes the pad thai. You let him. Because he is right, and because some arguments are not worth having, and because the person who has watched 41 videos and called you back at 1 a.m. has earned the pad thai. The next morning, you get to the office at 9. Ravi is already at his desk. This is normal. Ravi is always at his desk before you, a fact that used to make you feel slightly guilty and now just makes you feel like Ravi. What is not normal is what is on Ravi's screen. Your YouTube channel. He is watching one of your videos. At 9 in the morning, at his desk, in the office, you sit down, you do not say anything, you boot up your computer, you let him watch. After 4 minutes, he pauses the video and says, "I watched 6 of your videos last night." You say, "Which ones?" He names them. They are not your most viewed videos. They are the ones with the most specific detail, the ones where you went deepest into the story and trusted the viewer to follow you there. Ravi, it turns out, is a person who responds to depth and specificity. Of course he is. This is exactly who Ravi is. He says the one about the factory worker. That one is very good. You say, "Thank you." He says, "My uncle worked in a factory. He lost his job 4 years ago. He is still looking." That video, he pauses. Then he says, "That video describes something I did not have words for." You look at Ravi. Practical, spreadsheet, inputs and outputs, Ravi, who watched 6 of your videos last night and found words for something he did not have words for. You say, "I'm glad." Ravi says, "I subscribe." You say, "Ravi." He says, "It is a reasonable business decision. Your growth trajectory is positive and the content quality is improving consistently. These are good indicators." You say, "Thank you, Ravi." He says, "You're welcome. Now I have to finish this spreadsheet." He goes back to his spreadsheet. But his screen, you notice, still has your channel tab open. He just minimized it. He did not close it. Ravi, subscriber number 1248, the doubter who became a believer. The inputs finally making sense. The 3840 kind of arrives in your bank account 2 days later. You take a screenshot. You send it to Dan. He sends back 11 fire emojis and a voice note of himself saying, "The beginning." That's what this is, the beginning. You send it to your mom. She sends back a single message, refrigerator. You do not send it to Ravi because Ravi is now subscriber 1248 and you have a professional relationship to maintain. But you think about Ravi watching 6 videos last night and finding words for something about his uncle, and that feels more valuable than anything the screenshot could say. You look at the $38.40 in your bank account for a long time. And here's what I want to tell you. The thing that $38.40 has taught me that no amount of viewing analytics or subscriber counts or watch hour thresholds could teach. The first payment is not about the money. It was never about the money. The first payment is proof. Proof that the creative work you did in your bedroom on weekends, on the mornings when filming felt optional and you did it anyway, has value that exists independently of your belief in it. You believed in it. Dan believed in it. Your mom put it on the refrigerator. Your dad watched it on an iPad after dinner. But belief is internal. Belief lives inside the people who have it and does not always reach the outside world. 3840 reached the outside world. 3840 is the world writing back, saying, "We see what you are making. We chose to watch it. Here's the proof that we were here." That is what the first payment is. Not income, not a career, not financial freedom, a reply. You made something. You put it where people could see it. People saw it. And the world, the actual external, indifferent, busy, distracted world that has a million other things competing for its attention, the world wrote back, $38.40. Keep going. Because the second payment is bigger than the first, and the third is bigger than the second. Not because YouTube changes, because you do. Because every video makes the next one better, and every subscriber makes the algorithm push harder. And every Ravi who watched 6 videos last night and subscribed means there are more Ravis out there who just have not found you yet. They will find you. Keep making the thing. Keep putting it where people can see it. The world is still writing back. If you have received your first YouTube payment, no matter the amount, screenshot it and drop the number in the comments. 40, 12, 38, 40, and 200, whatever it is, drop it. Because someone reading those comments right now is in month 4 of $0 and they need to see that it happens, that the work pays, that the world writes back. Be that proof for someone. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Every week, a different life. Every week, proof that showing up works. See you in the next Borrowed Life.